Boitumelo Petla, who is a doctorpreneur, qualified as a medical doctor from the University of Pretoria. She further acquired an MBA degree from the Regenesis Business School. She is currently pursuing an advanced master's degree in clinical neuropsychology, hypnosis, and emotional well-being. She still practices in clinical medicine on a part-time basis. She's the newly appointed group CEO of a company focused in mining, agriculture, property, and energy sectors. Hi guys, women are working out here. Huh? Girl power. She is the visionary author of the national best-selling Real Life and Business Minds anthology. She has also authored another title, Business and Life Secrets for a Heavenly Experience on Earth, inspired by her entrepreneurial grandparents. She has founded the Dr. Bibi Petla Foundation, which is focused on youth and community development. Dr. Bibi is internationally recognized as a speaker and coach for her insights on wellness, relationship, and peak performance. Guys, can we give her a warm round of applause as we welcome Dr. Bibi Petla to the platform.
I just learned how to switch on a mic now. Good afternoon to each and everyone who is here today. Good afternoon. Thank you so much, Program Director, for the introduction. And to our CEO, thank you for entrusting me to be here to celebrate with your team, your great team, to be specific. And honestly, congratulations on this type of platforms. Because when you don't encourage people, they lose morale. It's a natural phenomenon. But for you, your leadership, to push something like this is not a waste, because all of us as human beings need to renew our spirits. And to all executive leadership that is present here, protocol observed, and to all of you as my colleagues, thank you for having me. So today I believe is your celebratory event. Awards event today, Excellence Award to be specific. So on that note, I'm here to celebrate with you so that the vision that your leadership had, the hard work that you put in, your commitment to your work can also be enhanced and supported. So I would like to take you on a journey. I will share a story with you in order to celebrate with you today's event and beyond today. I would like to share a story about a man, a fellow black man who was born in Rasikukune around 1920. This was a regular black young man at that time who grew up in difficult situations, as it were, at that time, and was able to finish school, but difficult circumstances, as is the story for most of us, due to our history. So once he was completed with his high school, he didn't have money to pursue further studies. Then the next best thing, he has to find a job, because he can't stay home just because he doesn't have money to study. Already most black families were impoverished. So he went to find a job. Eventually, he ended up in Johannesburg. He was at the peak of apartheid by the time that he was working. So he worked in Johannesburg. He worked from what I hear, he worked for a Jewish family. In that family, he was doing all the odd jobs, and he's a male. But that time already, he had to prepare their beds, cook for them, whatever odd jobs that they expected from him, he did it. You also understand that when you don't have an option, you do what you need to do to survive. Because there's what we call the Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Maslow's hierarchy of needs says until a certain state is fulfilled, even if you wish to, it will not allow you to move to the next stage. So if we are in a survival mode, we find it difficult to choose. You don't have a choice. You take what you have because you have to survive. So our carnal nature comes first, so that we survive until we get to a place where we start having options. So it was the same for him and your grandparents and your parents, because all of you are products of parents and grandparents who lived through that era. So at some point, something just switched on in his mind. He decided to leave Johannesburg and go back to his hometown. His hometown is in Jenfes, Rasikukune. He went back there, and apparently, those that understood him and the stories he shared was that when he was working for the Jewish family, he learned the importance of family. So he realized that family and business and religion, they're the cornerstone of any successful family, business, community. Because they will eat together, they will talk about money together on the table, and then they will praise to the same God. I think the same in the Bible is that once we don't share those common things, success is almost, it's gonna be shaken quite a lot. So he learned those principles and he saw how they operated. So when he was in his time of not having options, of having to do whatever he had to do, he didn't complain about his that state of being where it's like you are nothing and you have to slave away just to get money to send home. He learned during those difficult times. So now when he went back, he had the vision in mind, but he didn't have the resources at the same time to advance what he learned there, but he remembered and he kept the lesson to himself. And eventually he found a job at another Jewish family who had a business. So he worked with them for a while. Already that time he was married, apparently. And so he would work and go home, work and go home. And he was very creative in terms of always looking for opportunities. What else can I do to support my family? I'm working here, but if I have a little bit of time, what else can I do? So he hired land, apparently. He didn't afford to have land, but he hired to use the land, and then he would plant crops to sell with his wife. So they went through that journey. So his employer actually, they loved him so much that he was allowed to work and go home every day. Work and go home every day. And unfortunately, his fellow employees were not allowed to go home on a daily basis. So they decided one day, they got together, had a meeting with the boss, and said, we have a complaint. The boss said, okay, yes, what is the complaint? And then they complained that why is this man having favor with you that he gets to go home every single day? But all of us have to sit here and work and only go home month end. And then the employer said, okay, he listened to the grievances at the time, and he said to them, once they were done talking, he said, guys, I hear you. I hear what you're saying. But also what I need to tell you is that the privilege that I have offered to this man, I will not stop it. Even if it means all of you leave me and I'm left with only this man, I would rather allow all of you to leave and I'll stay with this man. So that tells you a level of service, the excellence. That is the nature of God. That is the highest order that all of us should strive for, because you see, when you understand that, even in service, remember even then, in the apartheid era, we knew that at the time we were saving the white people. But sometimes we can end up being victim of something that we can still come out of because we are just focused on the one angle. While you can use that very opportunity that is meant to oppress you and see what you can do with yourself, what you can learn from this, what you can get out of this, what are you going to take out of this? Because every place, every opportunity, every challenge, it is an opportunity in itself. But not all of us will take care of that opportunity and see what to do with it. So when you understand that, when it comes, especially today, because remember, you are being rewarded. Some of you are going to receive, those awards. Some of you won't receive the physical award. We should be happy for those who will receive the physical awards, because there's a reason they are getting those awards. But understand that even if you don't get the physical award, awards are not always physical. God has a way of awarding us beyond the physicalities. And to understand that when you serve, You are not serving the CEO. I think that's what we get it wrong most of the time. You are serving God. And the reason we find it difficult sometimes to submit to our leadership is because we think we are serving a human being. But when you understand that in submission, it is for God, because it is only God who rewards. There is no a human being who can actually reward you. And on that token, it means there is no human being who can take from you what God has placed in you and for you. So we will rejoice, but we must also remember there's a deeper calling for all of us. I mean, the work that you do, the work that we do, so that I almost excluded myself, I forgot I'm also in health. So the work that we do in health, we are responsible to literally keep people alive, if I can just simplify it like that. But we know deeper, it's not actually our decision, it's not our power, but we are given the responsibility and the skills to actually make those decisions, to actually show up and do the work, so that what we do or do not do, it actually determines what happens with our patient care. It's up to us as individuals. So I'm here to say, understand that in your service, it's not about your CEO. It doesn't mean if she doesn't see you or sees you, then you must say, okay, at least the CEO is happy with me. You must be happy, you must be in a good place first with your God. The God in you, because when you understand that service is beyond just how you feel, the people you know, and those that will do things for you, then you serve on a deeper level. You understand the responsibility of your work and your place, that where God has placed you. Because you are in health for a reason. Most of us are in health because we have passion for people. You are not here by mistake. It's only a few of us who are in health because there was no other job opportunities. We do have those ones. You're like, there's no other opportunities, let me just go for health. But the majority of us are actually in health because we are passionate about people. So the story of this man, I'm bringing it back to show you that there was a meeting that was held in his absence. He didn't know about the meeting, but he was defended in his absence. That is the power of understanding that your service is not for a person, your service is unto God. Even the person who was meant to destroy you and harm you or misuse, the kindness or your loyalty, God will defend you. So your destiny is not in anyone's hands, but the God that has created you, the God that has given you the gifts, He's the one who will defend you. So now what I want to do now is I want to bring the 7 highlights of this man. So now the significant thing before I bring the highlights is that the same man that I'm talking about started like any other black, poor man in South Africa during apartheid. And he died in the year 2011. He was 91. And we know that the gift of life is only a gift that God can grant you. When he died at the age of 91, he was a multimillionaire. The same man who grew up in poverty, just like most of us, the poverty that our parents knew, our grandparents knew. So the question is, what did it take for a man like that during those times when we were not meant to succeed? What did he have to do? What did he know that others didn't know? So now I want to bring that in a lesson to say, what are the top lessons that we can learn from him and apply in our own lives as we live today? So the first thing, the first lesson is having a steadfast vision. I've added the word steadfast because anyone can have a vision, but if you can drop the vision when you get pressure, then it's not a steadfast vision. So it's a specific description of the noun, steadfast, so that no matter what happens, you're not going to move your eyes from the ball. There's something you saw, even though the circumstances don't allow you, but you are willing to go through the process and trusting God that what He showed you, He will bring it to life. And he didn't undermine where he started. He understands that the same God who will help you in the valley is the same God that will glorify you when you are up in the hill. So I'll give you a story that they shared that when he wanted to build his biggest store in the early 1980s, this store was going to cost a few millions. And at that time, he was told when he applied for this that, okay, we can give you permission to build this store, but we want you to construct the store in such a way that you use a lot of glass and steel so that when we want to break this door, we can break it. It mustn't cost us a lot. Because remember, that's what people were told. They can just tell you something like that, and then you must just be brave and move along. So he was told that, look, it's fine, but make sure that when we want to break it, we can break this door. So he went ahead despite being told that this investment that he's making, he's not guaranteed. And then what he was also offered marketing, because it was the biggest store at the time in Sekhukhune for a black person and for the area. He was offered marketing. He refused the marketing too because he was a very private person apparently. So what he did though, the night before the store opened, he called his wife, he called his mother, and they prayed. That's all he did. They prayed. That's all he did. Because sometimes we end up undermining that this prayer thing doesn't work. You want more serious things, like what security do you have? But prayer still works today the same way that it worked before. All he did was pray. And the store worked, and it was a success throughout the rest of his life until he passed on. The next thing was an undisputed character. The word undisputed, because remember, if your character can be criticized in your absence, unfortunately it's going to cost you. So there's a story that he tells about, when trees are tall and stacked close to each other. If one tree is just even 10 centimeters taller than the rest of the other trees, the tallest tree will catch the wind. Even though there's a bunch of trees that are supporting each other. But the one that is just peaking a little bit will catch the wind. So you'll see it will start moving this way, despite that it has support from other trees. So the lesson there is, remember, once you are doing something great, you're going to stand out. Once you are committing, you will stand out. Once you are succeeding, you will stand out. So now what you need to do is the responsibility that lies on you once you start moving a little bit taller from the rest. So when you say, I will get the job done, I'm going to help this patient, because remember, it takes a lot. And with our health system, it's overburdened, we know that. Under-resourced, we acknowledge that. So it really takes a lot from you to say, I will use what I have to help my patients. With what I have, I'll do my best. And sometimes those that are not committed will end up making you feel uncomfortable, that you think you are better. That thing happens. But we forget that we are serving God, not people. So now in your service, you will not be stuck there. If you look at it as being stuck, wherever you will get to, wherever you need to get to, God will get you there, but in His time, right? So the third thing was centering around family. So the story that I hear about family is that when he left Johannesburg, gone back to Homestead, there was one of his children. So his idea was he didn't want his children to go back to Johannesburg because it was breaking the family structures, because when the husband leaves home, goes to Johannesburg, their families are left unattended to, because now they have to work, the wife must stay and take care of the kids. And that was disrupting a lot of family stability. And we know what happens when we don't have support. The family unit is distracted. It affects everything. It affects the health, it affects finances, it affects emotional well-being. So he saw that for him and his children, they won't have to go through that. And he paid the price for that. So what he also did for one of his daughters, her husband was working in Johannesburg. So it was continuing to happen as it was happening for everybody else. So he offered to pay the school fees of her child's husband so that he can be home with the children. Because otherwise what he wanted to prevent was about to happen again. So now I'm bringing this in because I want us to start embracing the idea of family. As black people, we are so broken and we are being made to accept the brokenness, but the brokenness continues to break us further. So we should start accepting the importance of building family, keeping things together, and where you can't, because remember, if things have already, the milk has already spilled, sometimes you can't correct things immediately. But intend it, communicate with your children and say, this is what went wrong for me. But I think you guys should try this. If you can match things at your level, take it further for the next generation to say, you must do it better. We can't continue to be broken. We can't continue to bear the fruits of brokenness as black people and normalize it. We know there's power physiologically, psychologically, economically, spiritually. When the family can be together, things work better. So that for me stood out, because if he was able to see into the future and invest in this young man so that his children don't have to go through what his children went through. So breaking generational curses that are breaking us, we should be conscious. If you see whatever brokenness that you see, that in my family we're all divorcing, you have to break it. In my family, all of us are in poverty. Break it. We can't continue normalizing things that are not building us up, because the minute we do that, that's what makes us to be more envious and jealous of other people, because we feel helpless. But when we understand that we actually now, we have the information, we have the knowledge, and then we start changing those things, we are more empowered to actually be able to even help other people. Another thing that was big for this man is enhancing others around you. It's very easy to want to succeed by yourself. You look good when you are successful. But we must not get lost in the idea of being on the high screen by ourselves, because when you succeed alone, unfortunately, the people that are looking at you most likely will be envious. It's a natural phenomenon, apparently. But when you understand that whatever that you succeed in, whatever that God blesses you with, whether the skill, resources, whatever that you have, share with others within what is practical. Because what happens is when you share what you have, the same people that you help, they will defend you in the future. You know, it's like what happens now in the mining sector. I'm sure most of you have read the news where the communities are fighting the mining houses for mining in their communities. And the reason for that is they are complaining that people are mining their resources, but they don't benefit as a community. But when they feel like justice is being done, that as they mine, they also take care of the community will not complain. The community will fight for them to work and protect them. But once people feel like there's a level of injustice, then they start causing disruption. So now with that I'm saying, whatever that you can do, whether it's a skill in the hospital, teach the juniors so that you impart the skill. Whatever resource that you have, whether it's an opportunity, share with others so that others are also empowered because of you. I think the fear that we have most of the time is we feel like there's not enough in the world, and there's more than enough. And sometimes we don't question the fear that we have, where it comes from. And I like bringing in the apartheid background in the picture, not to cause discomfort, but I want us to understand why we behave the way that we behave as black people. If we don't acknowledge what apartheid did to us, we will continue to be victims and be each other's enemy. That's the biggest thing for me. So most of our behavior, it comes from a place of lack, because remember, most of us grew up in lack, and not by choice, but by a system that created the lack. And then when you feel lack, you will try to survive by taking from somebody else because you really don't believe there's enough. So when you start acknowledging that, most of us today would say, I'm the first person in my family to have a car. I'm the first person in my family to have a degree. I'm the first person in my family to have this and that. So we have to understand what that means in terms of our choices, how we engage with other people, and how we can move forward going forward. So we can't continue to normalize that. We can't continue using those lines anymore. We have to stop. So at some point, we have to stop and start saying, what can we contribute? We acknowledge what has happened, but if we don't learn, we continue with the same cycle, and then we wonder why we're struggling with our children. Remember, because of the working hours that we have, most of us are hardly home. That is a reality. And when you're home, you're exhausted. But if you don't intend just to make even 30 minutes every day to talk to your children, and then they get to the future in their teenagehood, we're struggling with children that are on drugs, in the healthcare system. Drug addiction is a serious problem. We've got a lot of dysfunction in our families, and for some reason we don't connect that whatever is happening in our children is a reflection of what happens in their childhood. I mean, if we are not present enough, or conscious at least, to say we need to make sure that in the neurodevelopmental stage of our children, especially from birth up to 7 years, we must try to be present for our children a little bit. And then we're going to be surprised in the future. Then we get to the future, we don't know why the children are behaving like this, why they're not confident, why they struggle with relationships, why substances, why are they aggressive, why this. But no one is saying, but guys, do you remember, did we check what happened to these people when they were young? There are many adults today that were raped. They never told anyone. The biggest part of my job, even though I work with women and children from a health perspective, is you'll present with a physical symptom, but the actual cause of the symptoms and the signs that you present with is the trauma from the childhood. And we're not talking about that enough. We just want to treat the symptoms. And as long as we treat symptoms, we're not going to help anyone. So we must start creating the platforms of acknowledging people's pains. I mean, if you are treating a patient, you've checked organically, you can't find anything. You have to take this person back and ask them, how was your upbringing? All the answers of us, the life we experience as adults, all the answers are in our childhood. The neglect, the poverty, the forms of abuse. And by the time you're an adult, you're just a reflection of your childhood. So we don't develop new skills or become different people in adulthood. We just reflect on what happened to us when we're in our state of development, which is from 0 to 7 years. For those of you who have grandchildren, you have a chance now to do something about it. If you have your own children, participate in your children's lives, because you know how hard it is to work when you know that you've got trouble at home. It's very difficult to work. It's difficult. You're not a different person from home and work. So when we start integrating this thing and understand that the success of our work cannot be separated from the success of the family, they go together. Another thing, lesson, I think I'm left with 2 lessons from this man. Another lesson is the issue of health and vitality while we're talking about it. Most of us as healthcare workers don't take care of ourselves. We know that. Most of us neglect ourselves, we normalize it, but we coach our patients every single day. Every single day, like, make sure you do this. Have you done it? Hey, awulaleli as well, uzofa. Because we normally say that to our patients, but we never take the same thing back to ourselves and say, what am I doing about my own health? Because if you are not okay, your family is going to lose you. And we never tell each other that enough. Because if you are not okay, if you don't have a plan of how are you going to be vital so that you can combat the stress at work, the pressure at work, it's going to cost you. So when we start embracing that, you cannot talk about success and performance without acknowledging that you must stay alive and finding those simple things that you advise your patients with to say, how do I also remain vital, nje? Kwamin. And exercising is not for certain people, it's for everyone. You can't say, I'm a traditional person, I don't exercise, because all of us are in the same body. So we don't change the rules based on what we believe in. God created a human being same for everyone. The body works the same, whether you believe in it or you don't believe in it. We know that if you don't take care of your health in a certain way, it's gonna compromise you and you will demise. We don't ignore that all of us are going to die, but sometimes we die prematurely of things that we could have just prevented. Another thing, one last thing that I want to highlight from the lesson, I think that will be number 7. It was the issue of the excellence again. That's my last one, which I started with it indirectly. So now when you understand that when you offer service anyway, there is no one who is too low or too high to be excellent with what they do. Whether you're a cleaner, whether you are a nurse, whether you are a doctor, psychologist, and whether you're a senior doctor, whether you're an executive, all of us have the duty to be excellent, but it's not a force, because you have to decide how much you are willing to put in. Because whatever that you put in, it will find you. I think that is the biggest thing for me, that, sometimes when you're in situations, it's easy to really be discouraged because you become so practical, you've been trying things, and you see so many people around you sometimes who don't succeed. And then you end up applying to you and saying, you're feeling like you can just give up and just do the bare minimums and get paid, Mpumalanga. But unfortunately, your work ethic follows you everywhere. If you are excellent as a cleaner, you'll remain excellent as a CEO. If you're excellent as a doctor, you'll remain excellent as a specialist. So you don't become a different person based on your level of development. You are the same person everywhere. And God honors everyone. It doesn't matter on our titles, because before our titles, we're human beings first. So on that note also is a matter of respecting each other as colleagues and understanding that we're not here to compete with each other. We're here to create a system that will actually give us the results that we desire. And what are the results? Is to serve the patients. Our poor patients who don't have a choice, because we know the patients that come to us in the public sector, they don't have a choice. They would have gone somewhere else. So now we cannot be the ones to break people who are already helpless. I mean, by the time people come to us in public, they've already tried everything, and they're coming because they're hoping that will help them with dignity. With dignity. And another way of looking at it is, today, you can have a medical aid today. Tomorrow something happens, you don't have a medical aid, you have to go back to the same system. And you'd wish that you'll have somebody who will treat you with some respect. If it's your mother, you would wish somebody will just treat your mother with a little bit of respect, because when somebody is helpless, they will do anything. But the question is that the highest or the best that you can do to somebody who is coming, who's in your hands? You have the power to decide what you do with that patient. So I think just to, for us to be more courteous as healthcare professionals, we know that we're burnt out, but part of managing the burnout is we have to do all those things and have a balanced kind of approach to our own lives, exercising, trying to sleep. All the things that we always tell our patients. Because if you are burnt out, you make bad decisions yourself. Most of us are rude because we're actually burnt out. Not that we're rude people. We're actually burnt out. So now when you understand that there are some technical things that you can do practically to manage the level of stress that you are dealing with because of the level of responsibility that you have, then you start working on that. Because if you don't, your body will just demise. But before it will demise, you are going to be that mean nurse, that mean doctor, that mean lady who was helping us to open a file. But everything is basically a choice. And today, as you receive your awards, I really hope that it will be a significant moment for you to receive that award and use it, represent it well, so that your colleagues can also aspire to also get to where you're getting. But like I was saying, that an award doesn't always have to be physical. There are other ways that you'll be awarded. God has ways of finding you beyond even the circumstances that you find yourself in, beyond people wanting to limit your growth. Because even as colleagues here, there are little claims of us, this group versus this group. There's a gossip group here, a gossip group here, which sometimes interferes with our work. But when we understand that, guys, we're here to serve the patient, and when you are fortunate also to have a CEO who has a vision to say, guys, let's go motivate each other. Let's keep doing what we're doing. We're here to serve the patient. We see what you're doing. We see what you're trying. It's also a privilege to have that type of leadership. So in closing, I want to bring home the story of this man with this one story. So there was a point as he was rising. Remember I was saying, as you start making strides and you start standing out, it disturbs other people. It's almost like a natural thing, but it's not something that we should entertain, that we should be competing against each other. But we know it happens. So now when he was about to rise and people are starting to see that he's going somewhere, people organized for him to get killed. Because remember, that happens. Other people take it that far. So they organized for him to be killed, and the idea was they will kill him and take over the stores that he had. So as God would have it, the killer went to his house, they knocked at the door, and then they said, and he opened the door. They told him they were looking for this man, and it was him. So now, because this person was sent to kill him, but didn't know the person, they just said he stays there. Remember that time there was no internet, photos, phones. So he goes there, opens the door, he's looking for this man, and then he said to this guy who's sent for him, he says, he just left now, he went that direction. And for some reason, the guy believed him and left him. And immediately after that, he realized that this was really meant for him, and the guy didn't come with in good faith. And then he took his family small family at the time, then they ran away. And this was not the first attempt where he was almost killed because of a level of envy, but God defended him. So that's why I keep on saying, sometimes we do things, and because we are not God, we don't know what's going on in other people's minds. But when we do our part and God sees our part, He has a way of saving us in situations that could have killed us. So I really want everyone to really be encouraged and know that as where you are today as a healthcare provider in Witbank Hospital, your job is very valuable. Your participation is very valuable. That whole system depends on you doing your part. And then don't be discouraged to do your part. You're not losing anything. When you do your part, you will be defended by even people that you do not even know, by people you have never met before. That simple patient that looks poor to you, you never know who he knows or who his relative is. And one day you will be stuck and that person will save you. And this man that I've been talking about is my grandfather. I'm privileged to say, because of the work that he did then, today I'm doing all the things that I can do today because somebody planted that seed. So never be discouraged when you do the work. I never had to suffer. I don't know suffering, I must be honest, but it's not because I'm good, but it's because somebody paid the price before I even arrived. The man, he paid for universities, my father. My father came from a poor family. He couldn't afford also to go to school, but he said, because you're going to marry my daughter, I'm investing in you because I don't want the cycle to repeat itself. So I'm here because somebody took very brave decisions and committed themselves. So you stand in the same position today and don't undermine where you are, because sometimes even your children will be saved because of your kindness, because of your hard work, because of the excellence that you apply with what you do every single day. Thank you so much.